Okay, now we're going to continue on to question 29 as we enter our level 3 portion of this ACT math practice. These level 3 questions are going to be the hardest questions of the section. They're going to require us to not only have mastery of these fundamentals, we've been going over these past 16 questions, but they're going to call for us to be able to make more intricate deductions based off of the smaller amounts of information they're going to give us. So with that introduction, let's get started with number 29. What are all the values of x for which 5x is less than x? So off the bat, I want to box in all the values of x because that lets us know that we're not dealing with one clear-cut concrete value for x. We have to deal with the range of values for x that can be substituted for 5x is less than x and yield a solution that complements the statement given. So what this question is basically asking us to do is to come up with values of x that can be substituted to yield the stipulation given to us at the end of the question. So first step is what we already did, which is finding important information and boxing it. The next step is to find a value, one value that can be substituted that fits the stipulation. And off the top of my head, I'm thinking of any negative number because seeing that the coefficient 5 is placed in front of the x, I know that if I were to substitute a negative 1 for 5, that would be negative 5 is less than negative 1, which is in fact very true. So let's just use that. Let's substitute 1 in for x, negative 1 in for x. When we do that, we get negative 5 is less than negative 1, which does in fact add up, and it's true. Now that we know that we can plug in negative 1 for x and it can yield the stipulation to the right, let's look at these answer choices and try to eliminate answer choices that don't conform to this. So A, x equals 0. We can eliminate that answer choice because x equals 0 cannot be the only answer choice, because 1, we're looking for all the values, and 2, 0 isn't the only value that can be substituted to x that can yield the positive result. So that's already wrong. Now B, x is less than 0. So we take any value of x that is less than 0 and plug it into the expression given to us at the end of the question, then we will get a solution that is consistent with the inequality as a whole. So let's try that out. Any number less than 0. So let's go with negative 6. If we were to plug in negative 6 for x, we would get negative 30 is less than negative 6, which is in fact very true. And if we were to go down the line and go all the way down to negative 15, we would get negative 75 is less than negative 15, which is also true. So even though we're fairly confident that B is the correct answer at this point, let's continue to look at answer choices C, D, and E so we have a better understanding of every answer choice before we go straight to the correct answer. So 29 C. X is less than 1 over 5. What does this include? This includes not only negative 1, but it also includes 0. So let's try to plug in 0 and see if it yields good results. 5 times 0 is less than 0. You get 0 is less than 0, which doesn't add up at all because 0 equals 0, and 0 can never be less than 0 because it is the same value. And for that reason, you can eliminate answer choice C. And also, using the test prep strategies many of us should know, and through using deductions we can make off of this truth that plugging in 0 won't yield the correct result, we can now look at answer choices D and E that both include 0 and immediately eliminate those answer choices because 0 cannot yield the correct result. Because for D, x can be any value less than 1, but 0 doesn't add up, that is not correct, and the same with E as well. So we're only left with answer choice B, which is the correct answer. It is being able to formulate those deductions with the information you've been able to create for yourself that made it easy for me to eliminate answer choices A, D, E, and C. If you can do that, you should be pretty fine with this type of test. But let's continue on to number 40. We're entering the last 3 questions of the section. They should be the hardest, but not everything has to be as told. Let's get started nonetheless. Number 40. What are the solutions to a squared plus 2 is less than 5? So, looking for solutions. So once again, we're not looking for a clear-cut value. We're going to be looking for sets of solutions. But also, as we saw with other questions on this section, we see this inequality sign separating the left side from the right side. And as we did with the other questions, it is best to simply look at this inequality sign as if it is just an equal sign. So, let's get started with simplifying this. A squared plus 2 less than 5. We need to isolate the a, so we're going to subtract 2 to both sides. A squared is less than 3. And also, when we isolate the a now, we're going to square root both sides, since the opposite of the exponent is square root. And when we square root both sides, we're left with values of a is plus or minus root 3. Because if we are going to square the square root of any number and have that number equal, this should not be a root 3. That should be regular 3. My mistake. If we're going to square root any number of the same number and have that number equal, say, 3 or even 5 or even 7, it makes sense that the numbers that can be used to be multiplied by themselves to equal that same number have to be the number inside the square root. So that sounds confusing, but let me show you. So if I were to say a squared equals 5, we can easily deduce that 5 times 5 is going to equal 5, and also that negative root 5 times negative root 5 is also going to equal 5, because they're both the same number. Now with that said, we are going to